In this module, I'm going to show you how to write content organizer rules. You can use content organizer rules to route documents on any SharePoint site, but how we use them specifically inside of Record Center is to ensure that anyone can send a document to the Record Center without having to know the retention rule for that document. We're going to write a content organizer rule that will route records that are labeled with the content type IR document into this records library. To do that, go up to your settings and go to site settings. About halfway down the page, you'll see content organizer rules. We're going to add a new item. I like to name the content organizer rules the name of the content type that I am routing. Content organizer rules are always based on the content type. This allows us to quickly find them in the list later if we want to edit where we're routing these records. Scroll down and choose your content type. We had an IR content types group that we had created in a previous module. And now we're going to choose IR document. Wait for the page to refresh, then scroll down. It's at this point that we could add additional conditions. So for example, let's say that inside of my records library, I wanted to have individual folders for each department. I could use that vteam department and the Manage Metadata Choices to only route the IR documents from legal. Click Select and click OK. Scroll down, and we're going to choose our destination by clicking Browse. I'm just going to click on Record Library and click OK. Scroll down and click OK. And there's our IR document content organizer rule. Let's see this in action. I'm going to go back to the home page. And in this case, I'm just going to submit a record here inside of the Record Center. We'll explore in a future module how to configure the Send To feature so that you can route documents from your collaboration sites into the Record Center. But for now, let's see what the content organizer rule is doing for us. Click Submit a Record and click Browse. I'll select my IR document and click Open, then click OK. Now, because I'm declaring the record here, I have to assign it a content type. But if you were routing this document from another site, the content type would already be assigned. I'll click the down arrow and choose IR document. Wait for the page to refresh, and then I'll add legal department. Click Submit. This message lets us know that the document was submitted successfully and saved to its final location. It even gives us a URL directly to the file if we wanted to use that. What's important to note here is that this is the confirmation screen that says that the content organizer worked. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to go to Record Library, and it's been declared a record. Let's submit a new record and show you what happens if you don't have a content organizer rule written for the content. Go back to the home page and click Submit a Record. Browse, select your document, click Open, click OK. Select your content type. Wait for the page to refresh, and this time I am not going to assign a department. Click Submit. This is the confirmation screen that says that the metadata entered did not match a content organizer rule. Instead, it was moved to the drop-off library, waiting for more information before it can be properly routed. I'll click OK and go to drop-off library. In this case, notice that the IR document does not have the padlock icon on it. That means it has not been declared a record. Items that are in the drop-off library have not been declared a record yet. In the Content Organizer Rules settings, which I'll show you in just a minute, you can establish who gets an email when items have stayed inside of this drop-off library. So typically how we set it up is we have the records manager receive an email, and then they can route that to the appropriate records coordinator for the department. At that time, that department records coordinator would go into the drop-off library, edit the metadata of these files, and then they'll route out of the drop-off library and into their appropriate location. So let's do that. I'll click on the ellipses, click on the ellipses again, and choose Properties. I'll click OK to check it out. And I'll scroll down and add legal. Now, because I already have a file with the same name, I'm going to change it a bit. You can change the settings so that the record library will put characters on the end of duplicate file names. In this particular case, I have it set up so that if a record of the same name goes into the record library, that it will just create a new version of that record. That's why I want to rename it here so that we'll actually see two files when I click Submit. Save to the final location. That's what I wanted to see. Click OK. And now my drop-off library is empty. And if I go to my record library, I have two records. Let me show you how to change those settings. Go back to Home, click Settings, Site Settings. Scroll down to the middle of the page and choose Content Organizer Settings. This is where we have it checked to use the drop-off library and Content Organizer rules. Scroll down, and this is where you can choose your rule managers. You can email rule managers when submissions do not match a rule, or you can choose to email rule managers when items have stayed inside of that drop-off library for a certain number of days. Scroll down and click OK. Content Organizer rules are a tool that we use, especially inside of Record Center, to make sure that anyone can declare a record just by labeling it with the correct content type. And then we make SharePoint move that record into the appropriate retention container. In the next module, we'll talk about how to set up retention containers that will manage retention based on the container that the record is in, as opposed to the content type that the record is assigned to.